In this packet, we'll be discussing the best opening scenes in the Flashman books and why they are all just damn Flashman. There are 12 Flashman books. If you count his extended cameo in Mr. American, which also has some classic Harry moments. Some start with a Flashman opinion, some jump straight into the story, while others kick off with Harry being reminded of previous events which tee up the memoir. Mostly they are funny with the old soldier complaining about someone or something. In this packet, I will share with you my 4 favourite openings from the books and why. I'll try to limit this to the first few opening pages, but let's not let the rules get in the way. So here we go. Number 1. Flashman and the Great Game. Flashman tells us how he is rarely invited to Balmoral by King Teddy, but in Queen Victoria's Day it was a regular occurrence in September to receive an invitation to dear General Flashman. Harry doesn't like the place. In his opinion, the decoration was awful, the weather gloomy, and even the billiard room had a print of a dreadful ancient Scottish couple glowering devoutly, who he imagines are praying for him to be snookered. But his main complaint is that it brings back bad memories, as it is here where the Indian Mutiny began. He begins to reminisce on the train north, which is triggered by the rhythmic sounds of the track, in his mind changing into the chanting of Mira Jansi Dengi Nay, Mira Jansi Dengi Nay, and then flashes of events yet to come in the book from the siege at Cawnpore and the massacre at the Gap. Eventually he strays to the description of the beautiful Lakshmi Bai, but before it begins to turn more racy, he is brought back to the present day with a bump by the train arriving at the station and the station master welcoming him back to D-side. What a great bit of writing. First of all, it makes me laugh. There are so many Flashman turns of phrases, all wrapped up in the snobbery of the man. He bashes the royal family as only someone who knows them can, and he is still famous enough that people come to see his arrival and cheer. And even though he is stinking rich, he still tries to dodge the old soldier who claims he was with him at the charge and trying to tap him up for a sixpence. This is great, because you might think that someone of his age and experience might enjoy speaking with someone of similar experience, but no. Flashy can't be bothered with someone of no consequence. If Fraser was Scottish, I think there is a little internal self-deprecating joke here. He never seems to miss a chance to bash the jocks. Secondly, the way the daydream is described by Fraser to me is magic. It tees the packet up and the story goes from strength to strength. The Great Game, I think, is one of the best packets, and you get a sense of this just from the first few pages. The detailed description of his visits and his relationship with the royal family further establishes Harry as a real character. I am totally convinced by Harry's story, even before we have started. Harry as an old man, for me, is when he is at his funniest. Could you imagine Harry being a regular at your local? Not that he would ever lower himself to speak with the likes of me from the great unwashed. Number 2. Flashman and the Mountain of Light. Another opener involving the Queen. Again we find Harry in advancing years, and this time with Elspeth. The Queen is serving the couple tea, where she advises Flashman that she intends to learn Hindustani. She then repeats the phrase that Flashman had first spoken years before when they first met, in the presence of the Duke of Wellington, which, unknown to the Queen, is something the Bengali brasses would use to attract custom. Later in the opening, the Queen asks Flashman for his advice on something of grave importance related to the upcoming Golden Jubilee in 1887. She produces a letter written by Colonel Mackerson, dated 45 years earlier in 1852. The letter describes how Lieutenant Flashman could precisely say how the thing was worn. Flashman tries to recollect what it might be and what he was doing in 52. The Queen, with a flourish, opens a small box to reveal the largest known diamond at the time, the Koh-i-Noor, or Mountain of Light. Harry once more falls into a daydream, remembering the first time he saw it, held in the navel of the Maharani Jindan, almost naked and moving rhythmically to the music, encouraging Flashman to take it from her. Eventually he snaps out of it to Elspeth's concerns of him looking quite upset and the Queen's sympathetic clucks and blaming herself for bringing up old painful memories from the war. More fun from Flashman, as he is reminded of how he's taught the Queen of England to speak like a prostitute. We get another wonderful daydream which takes us off and out of one unique scene to another, heralding what's to come and at the same time making another gag out of it. I love the fact the Queen pulls from her handbag the yellowing letter recounting Harry's exploits from all those years before, and to top it off we have the biggest diamond in amongst the teacups. Neither the Queen or Elspeth have any real idea of what happened to Harry, only you, me and Flashman do. We are in on the secret that is about to unfold, and that diamond, by way of Flashman, to this day is mounted in the Queen Mother's crown at the Tower of London. Number 3. Flashman and the Angel of the Lord. From an innocent afternoon in the garden of Gadamak Lodge with his great-grandchildren, Flashman takes us across continents and time in his daydreaming. All kicked off by the sound of a gramophone playing an old tune we all know. He tells us of how he'd be in trouble with a wife for letting the Grandlings get dirty playing with the pond. The music starts a conversation about John Brown, the subject of the lyrics. Flashman lets it slip that he knew Brown, which turns up the curiosity. He is asked whether Brown really did free all the slaves in America, which sends Harry into another daydream about the raid on Harper's Ferry, the gunshots, the smoke, and the blood amongst the straw. He is brought back to the garden by his 4 Grandlings' impatience to hear more, and we are treated to Flashman's warm description of each of the children. Eventually they head back to the house, arranged and marching in military fashion, singing Glory, Glory, Hallelujah, with new lyrics by Harry. Unfortunately, the bishop and other visiting Pecksniffs didn't appreciate the loud and dirty children entering the house, or Flashman falling flat on his face, spilling his brandy. The children are sent to bed early with no tea, and the guests leave with disgust towards Harry and sympathy for Elspeth. After which, Harry receives a proper going over from Elspeth.
Finish this! To you from me, Pinky Lee!
For leading the children astray, getting them wet, and how she was ever going to face the bishop again. The intro nears the end with Harry smuggling a picnic of goodies into the children, where they insist on hearing the story of John Brown. They all fall asleep, with Flashman later awoken by a kiss on his forehead from Elspeth, shaking her head in fond despair. This one for me is wonderful. I can vividly imagine Harry in his old age with Elspeth at home. The whole opening is sprinkled with the personalities of his grandchildren, and this is used to navigate through the story. As the children compete for his attention, you can sense the love that Flashy has for each by the remarks he makes about their individual personalities. Here we see a soft side of Harry, which seems to be only reserved for Elspeth, Selina his granddaughter, and here with his great-grandchildren. Everyone else seems to get equal contempt. The escape from the memory of the hell of the ferry to the warm family scene is brilliant. Fraser hits square on the head how we appreciate our loved ones or familiar surroundings more when we've been through a bad situation or scare. It makes them seem more dear to us, and all the trifles of life fall away. This warmth, coupled with the usual humour of him falling flat on his face, half sloshed in front of the bishop, and Fraser's self-deprecating go at the Scots, with Elspeth's nauseating euphemisms for Paisley, means I really like this opener. Number 4. Flashman and the Redskins. This packet opens with Harry describing how he is good at languages, or slinging the bat as he calls it. Fluent in 9 and could get along in another dozen, although he couldn't pick up Apache, even though he tells us he was married to a Membreno Apache. After which he slides away into a brief reminiscence over the wedding day, but this time Fraser uses the encounter with a famous anthropologist to preview what is coming in the book, by way of an argument rather than a daydream.
Have you heard of David Cameron?
Yes.
Is he a queer?
Well, he certainly looks like a queer, doesn't he?
Oh, he looks like a queer.
And I've heard him on the wireless, and he sounds like a queer.
Oh, he sounds like a queer and he looks like a queer.
But if he sounds like a queer and looks like a queer, I should think he's probably a queer.
Probably is a queer if he looks like a queer and he sounds like a queer. Probably a queer.
If he sounds like a queer, looks like a queer, it's probably a queer, yes.
Sounds like a queer, looks like a queer.
Probably a queer.
Probably is a queer.
Probably a queer.
He's probably a queer.
Probably a queer, yes.
Probably a queer.
Probably a queer.
Yeah, probably a queer.
Cameron the queer, yes. He's married, of course. Oh. So this would queer the pitch against him being a queer, even though he looks like a queer.
He does look like a queer, doesn't he?
And he sounds like a queer.
He does sound like a queer.
So even though he looks like a queer and sounds like a queer...
He looks like a queer, he sounds like a queer.
He does. Yes, he does, yes. But he may not actually be a queer, as he's married.
Well, Bunny's married. You're married, aren't you, Bunny?
Oh, yes.
And Bunny's a queer. You're a queer, aren't you, Bunny?
Oh, yes.
Bunny's a queer.
Yes, yes. Well, then I should think this David Cameron fellow probably is a queer.
Well, he probably is a queer.
If he looks like a queer, sounds like a queer, and Bunny's a queer, Cameron's probably a queer, yes.
He looks like a queer, he sounds like a queer, Bunny's a queer. I shall put him down as a probable queer.
Yes.
Good.
Flashman at his finest here, drunk and in the Travellers' Club as a guest. Whose guest we don't learn. Interestingly, Beecham is listed as a famous member, but not Beecham Coma. Flashman overhears the anthropologist speaking in Apache, which gives him a start, and after inquiring what was meant by it, the argument warms up. The government policy and treatment of Native Americans on one side, and Flashman describing the cruelty of certain individuals and pious hypocrisy of people who weren't there on the other. Harry finally loses it and shows off his scalping scar and launches into a tirade of Flashman wisdom which leaves the anthropologist hiding behind a chair to get away from the excited octogenarian. As the verbal assault mounts, Flashy is escorted off the premises by a couple of porters and ends up addressing the vaults of heaven from Pall Mall. His final remark being, "Who the hell said that the Washington government was Christian anyway?" Which the porter said he really couldn't say, but could he get him a cab? We then have another wonderful reminiscence from his Berkeley Square home about things to come in the book that are long gone, and then we're off on the adventure straight into John Charity Spring MA in New Orleans. I might just have to keep reading on this one. I love this opener, because every time I read it, it makes me laugh out loud.
They wax as high as any in Rome.
I would love to have been there when Harry gave what for to this so-called expert, a drunk 89-year-old who everyone thinks was a killing machine in his youth, who by this time must have been barely tolerated at clubs just because of his glorious past. He is indulged by the porters who seem used to his behaviour. He gets so wound up he doesn't even realise no one is there in the street to listen to him rant anymore. I wonder what opinion a young Flashman meeting the old Flashman would have had. We're also given another extraordinary list of things to come in that wonderful backwards and forwards in time way Fraser so easily pays out. So well written that it all seems to be too real, and I just want to sit in that same leather chair in the Travellers, have a brandy, close my eyes and imagine I'm listening to the old soldier rattle on. So there you are, my favourite openers from the Flashman papers. But what do you think? Got any ideas on what you liked in the openers? Why not get the story going by dropping them in the comments below? We're really keen to share the shave. If you like what we do here at Flashman Study, why not hit that subscribe button to keep you up to date on the latest adventures in the Flashman universe? And if this floated your boat, how about a plucky thumbs up? And remember, would you like nuts or cigars?